Hello?
Welcome.
This is the Two Cities.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Hi, and welcome back to Tales of Two Cities podcast. We have another set of strange stories for you in this episode, but first we wanted to tell you about some really cool stuff that's happening. First, thank you all for your dedicated listenership. We just passed 20,000 listens, and that's a huge milestone. But as the podcast grows, we have to adapt. So we're proud to announce some new partnerships with companies like Parabox and advertisements from cool companies like Bookishly. Obviously, we love stories. So it's no surprise that we're bibliophiles. We love books, we collect them, and that's why we're so excited to tell you about Bookishly. Bookishly.com has a range of things for book lovers, including monthly subscriptions from teaandbookclub.com. You can choose between tea or coffee and either a vintage book or a new copy of a classic book with a design created exclusively by Bookishly. And they truly are beautiful. Bookishly is a real dream come true for anyone who loves books, bringing you a wonderful surprise each month. But don't take my word for it. Check it out at bookishly.com or sign up at teaandbookclub.com. Prices start from $18, including shipping from the UK. And for our listeners, the code TOTC will take 10% off your first 3 payments at teaandbookclub.com and 10% off orders on Bookishly. That's code TOTC for both teaandbookclub.com and bookishly.com. And we're proud to announce that we officially have merch. That's right, we have t-shirts, stickers, phone cases, journals, mugs, even pillows. Check that out at our online store at teepublic.com. That's TEEPUBLIC.com. Search Tales of Two Cities podcast to head to our store and pick up your rad items. And please, send us pictures of you with your new stuff. We'll pick our favorites and give shout-outs on social media. Thanks for sticking with us and remaining loyal. We so appreciate you all. And now, for our latest episode on Maine. There are so many cool stories out there. Every place has its own history, steeped with mystery and strangeness. But what we love is finding commonalities, seeing how stories we tell ourselves organically emerge, and then looking across at all of the patterns that are revealed. And that's why we love hearing from you guys, especially when you share your stories. In this episode, we're going to talk to Jill, who emailed us about a witch in Maine.
It's like a drunk history, but just like a drunk history with someone who's relatively sober and just has a bad memory.
I love it.
Okay. Cool.
So this is in Maine?
Yeah, so this is in Bucksport, Maine.
Okay.
And the way, as I remember, I heard this story, and I actually asked my dad about it recently. So there was a night that my mom, I don't know where she was. She must have been out of town. She was out of town for the weekend. And my brother, who was 3 years older than me, and myself slept in my parents' bed with my dad. And for whatever reason, my dad decided to read some stories out of this book, which I can't remember what it was called, but it was like Joe Schmo's book on like unusual tales or something like that.
Cool.
And I remember my dad read a tale about the tombstone in Bucksport, Maine, and then he read me another one. And I remember even as like a 6-year-old kid thinking like, well, I guess I'm not going to the bathroom by myself tonight alone. Like I was so freaked out, and I was just like, why did he decide to tell us scary stories tonight?
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'm going to pee in the bed tonight. But so the story is the colonel, I think his name was John Buck, who was that the town is named after. So he's like one of the 4 fathers of this town in Maine that was named after him, called Bucksport.
Okay.
And the story, as I know it, is that there was an old woman in town, and she had 3 sons, which now I can't remember really how they were involved, but it was around the time of people, Puritans, like deciding that they were finding witches, and she was like the one kind of gnarled old lady in the town, and maybe she had a wart, and
of course,
probably and poor, and he decided, Colonel John Buck, that this woman was a witch and they were going to have a trial, and that they were, if she was found guilty, she was going to be burned.
Okay.
So they did whatever they did to find out who was and wasn't a witch, and decided that she was, and that they were going to burn her at the stake. And this is where it starts to get a little foggy. Either as she was burning, one of her sons made the curse, or she made the curse.
Okay.
And the curse was related to, my foot will always be on your grave, or I will always be standing on you. And as long as or after you die, I'm always going to be there, standing on top of you. And no one thought anything about it. Time went on. He dies. Not immediately, but years later, they put up a tombstone. And after it was up for a little bit, they started to see this weird mark in the marble that gradually began to get darker and look like a woman's stocking. So I would say, like, from the calf down, with sort of like a slightly pointed foot.
Oh, no.
And yes. So they couldn't have that. You know, I guess whoever remembers when this happened, I don't know if it, like, clicked with anyone. So they thought it was just something weird in the marble, and they tried to clean it, and they tried to, I don't know, whatever they did back then to clean marble. It didn't work. So they took it down, and they put another one back in its place. And over time, the same mark showed up.
That's so creepy.
Yes. And I don't know when was the last, like, when, if ever, they tried it again. I've seen it. My parents, we used to go to Maine every summer, and Bucksport is sort of like along that corridor of Maine where it's like adorable town after adorable town.
Cool.
And I think I was probably really on my parents to stop there. And it was pre-internet, so I had no clue. Like, I don't know what I was expecting, but it's a very small cemetery, and it's on like a corner of a relatively small town. But I did take a picture, and it was like an excellent picture, and it was pre-iPhone, so I distinctly remember like waiting to send the photo in and then get it back, and just being like so amazed when I got it back. So that is the story as I know it. I recently looked at, I made the mistake of researching a little online, which always ruins it for me. But they were saying that at the time of when he was around, it was way past time like anybody was condemning witches. That there was no record of there ever being any sort of like witch trials or witch burnings or anything.
So do you think it's real? Do you think it's a curse?
Totally. Yes, I do. I mean, I kind of wish that they would take it down one more time to see if it came back.
Yeah.
But I love that stuff. So, yes, of course. And just the fact that, like, I could see it, and I saw it when I was a kid, and then I lived in Maine for a year, that I made my boyfriend, at the time husband, go and see it too. Like, I just thought it was so great to go back and see it. And I just think it's a really good story, and whether or not it's just a weird piece of marble, it's still a great story.
It's funny that it starts with a woman being condemned and then someone, you said her son, cursing, right, as she's burning. Because there was, in one of our early episodes on cemeteries, I think it's actually our first episode, we looked at some of the cemeteries in Oregon, and there's one in Oregon where there was a son that was being condemned, and he was being killed, and his mother said that she was going to curse them, and then she haunts the cemetery.
Oh, shit. That could be the story, too. It could be similar. I mean, maybe, because now I'm remembering the sons, and I'm like, I don't really remember what their purpose was. But yeah.
That's the cool part about folklore, though, is you get all of these patterns.
Well, yeah, the cursing. I love the cursing. Because what else, what the hell else are you going to do at that last moment of a pre-burn? You're going to curse.
Yeah.
What do you have to lose?
I mean, maybe that's why we curse in the podcast so much.
Maybe. I listen to a couple different podcasts, and I'm always surprised that I haven't heard that story. Possibly it's been, completely debunked, and that's why, and I just had the chance but didn't look it up before I talked to you guys, but it's always one that stayed with me, and especially since I lived in Maine for a while, and it's such a, idyllic on the outside, but, dark on the inside type of place, that any sort of, weird stories that come from Maine, I'm always fascinated by.
New England is no stranger to ghost stories and strange incidences. Being the oldest part of the United States, we often romanticize its history. While we covered some of Massachusetts' history in our special episode on Salem, there's tons of stories like this, and a few other interesting ones from Maine that we wanted to share. This time around, we're going to explore wider than deep, with an array of tales from Maine.
Bucksport, Maine is a town in Hancock County. It was founded in 1792, and in the 2010 census, the population was 4,924. It is also the town with the weirdest and most bizarre stories. Basically, it is the paranormal paradise. Buck's tomb is a great example of that. At Buck Cemetery stands a famous phallic tombstone with the legendary name of Buck engraved in the center. It is a standard tombstone, but it has one odd feature. Right under the name Buck lays a stain resembling a disembodied leg. See, this tombstone belonged to Colonel Jonathan Buck, the founder of Bucksport. He was the justice of the peace and ordered a witch to be executed by burning. Basic colonial things. However, this woman that was executed wasn't a witch. I know, shocking. She was actually someone rumored to have had an affair with Jonathan Buck. She got pregnant, asked for help, and he declared her a witch and had her executed. Her son supposedly salvaged her leg and buried it in the memory of his mother. Her reputation was tarnished forever, but Buck's wasn't. He died, and nothing happened. However, on his tomb, there is a stain of a leg under his name. Despite the amount of times that they tried to clean it, it returned. They even replaced the tomb, but it came back, dangling under his name, never leaving his side. It's still there, dangling. Speaking of the dead comes Sarah Ware. Sarah Ware is buried at the same cemetery as Colonel Buck. In 1898, 52-year-old Sarah Ware was walking home from a friend's house when she mysteriously disappeared. 2 weeks later, she was found in a field, dead, with her head nearly severed from her body. So, for the small town of Bucksport, this was a big story. Investigators found a bloody tarp and a hammer, which were proposed to be connected to the murder. All of these items belonged to William T. Treework, a store owner in the same town. Joe Fogg stated that he was paid to move Ware's body by Treework, which sent Treework to trial. He was acquitted when Fogg recanted, and mysteriously, the murder weapon disappeared. In addition to all of this tragedy, Sarah Ware was buried without a head. Investigators decided to keep it, and it was locked in evidence for 100 years. Eventually, they buried the head, but many people don't believe that it was in the right spot. Some believe the family moved her body to the old Silver Lake Cemetery, now submerged under Silver Lake, and left the tombstone behind. Her small white tombstone can be found in the Ware family plot. You can visit it. Well, you can visit her head. Right near to where Sarah Ware was found is Silver Lake. And yes, it isn't a normal body of water. Silver Lake is a man-made lake made to support the Bucksport Mill. However, like I said before, this was the location of the old Silver Lake Cemetery. All of the bodies were dug up and moved someplace else, but sometimes energies remain. For some of you, this might seem similar to our other episodes. Your next beginning might be someone's end and to places long forgotten. For the others that have no idea what I'm talking about, check them out. They're a trip. When you're at the lake, you could see the tombstones up on the hill. Some believe that the workers didn't fully complete the job and that some of the bodies are still at the bottom of the lake. You can visit this lake. It's only a short hike away, but beware. Many have seen a headless apparition walking around, circling you, keeping you trapped in the center of this body of water. The last story is the murder of the Trim family. On October 13, 1876, Mrs. Thayer and her 4-year-old daughter had moved in with her 74-year-old dad, Robert Trim, after the death of her husband. It was a cool evening, so she decided to walk to the nearby post office to deliver some mail. This would be the last time she was ever seen alive. After 3 a.m., a neighbor of Trim's woke up to see Trim's house on fire. Raising the alarm, all the neighbors came to help. When they arrived, they saw who they believed to be Trim, dead in the carriage house. They found a skeleton, burned of flesh, in the barn, but there was no trace of the child. To make matters even weirder, Trim's nephew arrived, pale and shaken. He said that he had visions that his uncle had told him to go down the lane and find a pole leaning against a fence. When the neighbors followed his foretelling, they found Melissa, the mother's, scarf covered in blood, followed by a trail of blood leading to the burned-down barn. When investigators explored the matter, all the witnesses came across one man, Captain Smith. He was living on the Trim property, and many have said to have seen blood on his hat as well as his vest. When asked why, Smith said he went hunting. It was thought that Smith knocked Melissa unconscious with a rock and slit her throat to rob her. He waited and killed the old man and the daughter right afterwards. Trim's money was never recovered. Smith got life in prison and eventually was killed with an iron pipe. You can still visit this location. It is a barren piece of land now. But keep an eye out because the daughter still hasn't been found.
We all come here for one major thing. We love the paranormal. Whether ghosts whispering in your ear or alien lights blinding you from above. We always like to question and explore the unanswerable. That's why Parabox Monthly is a fantastic service to satisfy those thirsts.
Wonderful.
Parabox Monthly is a subscription box service that sends you a paranormal puzzle with every box. Every month, they ship out a strange and unique paranormal-themed shirt, which contains hidden clues for you to solve their riddle. This is how it goes. Quote, the shirts come with an informational cards that explains the theme and may also contain hints onto how to decode the shirt. Once the shirt is decoded, click 2018 Themes tab and find the shirt theme. Then enter the decoded password. You'll be on your way to do more puzzles and challenges. If you're skilled enough to find the end of our hunt, you'll be entered into a drawing for additional merchandise.
Attention! To help carry on our important work, I want you to join the Secret Squadron.
If you wanted to experience the escape room next to Bigfoot, this is the company to do it. Their paranormal themes have included ghosts and haunted locations, UFO encounters and aliens, folklore and legends, cryptozoology, and urban legends.
Oh, well, you look. I never seen the like. Never did. Man.
Also, if you're worried that you'll be stuck in a contract system that would never let you out, don't worry, you could cancel any time. So, for paranormal or supernatural fun, go to www.paraboxmonthly.com and use our code 2cities at the checkout box. 2cities, one word, to get 10% off your first box. That's 2cities in the checkout box for 10% off.
Golly, Chief, I hadn't opened up the box yet, but I'm going to now.
Enjoy your search.
The Mount Hope Cemetery has connections to Stephen King. Most listeners at this point know that I'm a big fan of Stephen King. He's from Maine and writes about the area frequently. The film Pet Sematary, based on his book, was filmed at Mount Hope. There's actually a scene that Stephen King is in, because he loves to be in a single scene of each of his films. But it's shot in the cemetery. It's a creepy place. There have been reports of shadows and a sense of unease. This might be connected to the cemetery's history, as it's a final resting place for many soldiers. One story tells of General Elisha G. Marshall, a Civil War general whose grave was robbed. His bones were taken and scattered throughout the cemetery, and the story wouldn't be complete without evidence of a satanic ritual at his burial site. Satanic rituals are a common theme in these kind of stories, so it's not surprising that it goes along with this one. Just 30 miles from Augusta, the Riverside Cemetery in Lewiston, Maine, boasts stories that seem just as outlandish. Michelle Sulieri's book, Strange Maine, retells a story shared by someone in 2007. One night, 3 people from Lewiston decided to take a walk in the Riverside Cemetery on a clear October afternoon. They sat for a time before deciding to go to the Libby Mausoleum. As they approached, they felt a strange negative energy. It was in the air. They kept walking toward the structure. One began speaking with whatever the energy was, but heard no response. They were met with forceful wind, which was very cold, so they turned around. One lit a cigarette and heard a cracking. The birch tree next to the mausoleum had split and was falling right where they were standing. They ran, but even after, they kept feeling an unusual presence for several days. But like I said, sometimes stories repeat. The blog Strange Maine shares another very similar story. Matt tells his story about a walk with his brother Mike and his ex-fiancée Nikki, who took a walk in the Riverside Cemetery. It was a sunny fall afternoon. They began walking towards the river. A dog was running toward them off-leash, followed by its owner. The owner let the dog defecate on a burial plot and continued on without cleaning it up. They, Matt, Mike, and Nikki, agreed that it was horribly disrespectful. This brought the Libby Mausoleum to mind. Someone had shamelessly kicked the stained glass windows on the doors in the mausoleum. So, Mike and Nikki, having never seen the mausoleum, asked Matt to take them. But Matt mentioned that almost immediately, as they moved towards the mausoleum, he felt that they weren't welcomed. There was tension building in the air. Matt felt as though someone was watching them. Nikki felt it too, and they decided to attempt to speak to whatever it was. It got really cold, and Matt told them that he was getting a horrible vibe. Nikki lit a cigarette, starting to sound familiar. Matt felt the air become charged, and he said his stomach fell. He turned away from the crypt, and Nikki yelped. Then they heard a loud cracking. I told you it sounded familiar. Nikki was running towards Matt, as the top half of a birch tree snapped and came crashing down. They ran. As they fled, it felt like whatever it was that was following them was not far behind. That feeling followed Matt. He couldn't stay warm. Nikki couldn't either. She felt the presence linger for a few hours after the incident, unlike Matt, who felt it for days. He went online to see if he could manage to find an image of the Libby Mausoleum, but only found one photo, ironically by an acquaintance of his, who also shared a story of an injury from trying to take a photo of the mausoleum. She pulled something in her leg while climbing to the tomb's entry. As the camera snapped, capturing an image, there was a sharp pain in her leg. She explained, quote, I heard, did not feel, heard a huge crack and then snap. For a fraction of a second, I thought my calf had cramped up. Then the pain came. The stories are eerily similar. Maybe they're the same urban legend, or perhaps it's just what happens to the people who visit the Riverside Cemetery. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Tales of Two Cities. I want to give a shout out to another cool podcast, the Brohio Podcast. You guys should check them out.
I am Nick.
And I am Rob, and we are the Brohio Podcast.
We cover all the unknown and much more.
Aliens, true crime, famous murders, monsters, paranormal, and everything that goes bump in the night.
We keep it funny, slightly trashy, and sometimes we like to talk about crapping our...
Nick, we are trying to make a good impression here.
Right. You can find us on all your favorite podcast apps.
We drop new episodes every Monday.
We are a member of the Bomb Pod Media Network. We'd love to talk to you on Instagram and Twitter at Brohio Podcast.
And the Bros of Brohio do appreciate you listening.
We will see you on the dark side.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. It really helps us out. And we love hearing from you guys. So hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or email us at talesofthe2citiespodcast@gmail.com. Until next time.
Blah, blah, blah.
Nope. Making shit up.
Gluck. Suck my dick. Investigate. Spit my tongue. Fuck.
Stop.
Told you I would burp.
I told you.
The center of this what, bitch? Oh.
Done.